Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Pil. Now the top stories this hour. People's Democratic Party in Abia State suspends BOT chairman Adolphus Wabara over alleged anti-party activities. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kekerekun, decries persistent corruption allegations, delays in justice delivery. And Sudan's largest civilian coalition splits over government formation. Details coming up shortly. Now let's begin with politics. The State Executive Committee of the People's Democratic Party in Abia State has announced the suspension of the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the party, Adolphus Wabara, for 1 month. Wabara is alleged to have, in 2023, assured Governor Alex Otti that his second term is already booked. The state chairman of the party, Amma Abraham, who announced his suspension at the meeting of the State Executive Committee on Tuesday in Umuahi, says the former Senate president is yet to respond to questions by the party over an alleged comment for more than 1 year.
Support that Senator Adolphus Wabara be suspended from our party for 1 month and also vacate his position in the BOT as chairman and as member. Let them say yay. In line with the provisions of the PDP Constitution 2017 as amended, and after careful deliberations, the State Working Committee, SWC, and the State Executive Committee, SEC, have unanimously resolved to suspend Senator Adolphus Wabara from the party.
Before the expiration of the 30 days, we are going to constitute a disciplinary committee that will make further recommendations. We are going to send our report to the National Working Committee of the party to know that this is a decision we have taken. And we have all the powers provided by the Constitution to take this position.
In the meantime, the lawmaker representing Zangon Kataf Jaba Federal Constituency in Kaduna State, Amos Magaji, has defected from the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, to the All Progressives Congress, the APC. House Speaker Tajuddin Abbas made the announcement on the floor of the House of Representatives during plenary on Tuesday. Abbas attributed the lawmaker's defection to the crisis in the PDP and urged the APC members of the House to bring him to their fold. But the minority leader of the House, Kingsley Chinda, countered the defection, citing Section 68 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which prescribes the consequences of defection. Chinda quoted the section as saying that any lawmaker who defects from a political party stood to lose his seat. African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina says he is ready to serve Nigeria and Africa in any capacity after his tenure at the bank expires in the second half of the year. Discerning observers are interpreting this to mean he may run for Aso Rock in 2027, which he declined to do in 2023. Expectations were high and widespread for him to contest for Nigeria's presidency in the last general elections, so much that he had to issue a statement clarifying he could not do so at the time because he enjoyed his job and AFDB rules did not permit him to go into politics. Adesina served as Agriculture Minister in the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. He was first elected as the 8th president of AFDB on 28 May 2015 and later won a second and final term, which he will complete in 2025. And still in politics, Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State says he is confident of securing a second term should he make up his mind to seek re-election in 2027. The governor spoke in Port Harcourt during a solidarity visit by the 3 local government areas that make up the Kalabari Ethnic Nationality. The delegation had endorsed him for re-election, citing his leadership qualities and commitments to infrastructural development, including the ongoing 200 billion naira Trans-Kalabari Road project. The governor emphasized the focus on his administration in serving the needs of Rivers people rather than to measure how long he wants to be in office. Now, in the meantime, the Rivers State Commissioner for Justice and Attorney General Dagogo Iboroma said the Supreme Court did not reinstate Martin Amaole and 26 others as State House of Assembly members. Iboroma, in a media briefing in Port Harcourt, said various interpretations of the court ruling in social media are misleading. He emphasized that the state 2024 budget has been fully spent and cannot be brought back, adding that even the 2025 appropriation bill has been passed, signed into law, and in operation.
The 9th day of November 2023, Martins Amewule and another instituted suit number FHC ABJ CS 1613 2023 at the Federal High Court Abuja. Here are copies of the originating summons and the 11 reliefs they claimed in the summons. It will be made available to you to make up your mind. Now, on the 11th day of December 2023, while suit number FHC ABJ CS 1613 was pending in court, Martins Amewule and 26 others defected from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressives Congress and automatically lost their seats as members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. In suit number FHC ABJ CS 1613 2023, the question of defection of Martins Amewule and 26 others was not an issue for determination. In other words, because this should have been filed before they defected, the question of defection could not have been an issue in that case.
Now, in the meantime, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudirat Kekereekun, has expressed concerns over persistent challenges in the judiciary, including corruption allegations, delays in justice delivery, and perceived bias, despite efforts to tackle them. Speaking in Abuja at the opening of the 2025 hybrid refresher course for judges of Superior Courts of Record, Kekereekun acknowledged that the issues continued to undermine public confidence in the judicial system. She noted that the challenges weaken the judiciary's authority and create a disconnect between the courts and the society they serve, highlighting the judiciary's role as the guardian of justice and the final arbiter in disputes. Kekereekun noted that its effectiveness is deeply tied to public trust. Now, to help us put this into perspective, we are joined by Executive Director, Sterling Center Law, Deji Ajari. Mr. Deji Ajari, thank you very much for joining us this evening here.
Having me, good evening.
Grand. Now, can you please analyze the implications of CJN Kekereekun's remarks on public trust in the judiciary? What role does transparency play in this context?
Sorry, if I didn't get the last part of your question. What role does what?
I had asked what role does transparency play in this context?
Okay, absolutely. Now, the comments made by the CJN is an excellent starting point for the critical discussion on the state of our judiciary. It is very timely, although belated. It is valid. But the point is that it is better that it is late than that it is never addressed. The confidence that the people have in the judiciary is what confers legitimacy on the judiciary. And where public trust is missing, then the judiciary loses its authority. So public trust is not just important, it is indispensable. So whether due to corruption, whether due to delays or perceived bias, the very foundation of our justice system is the public confidence in that system. Now, to the second leg of your question, what role does transparency play? I think transparency is 50% of the confidence that we speak about here. Because it is not just enough that the justice system is impartial or devoid of bias. It is not just enough that the justice system is not enmeshed in corruption. It is not just enough that these things are not there. It is very important that the public perceive that these things are not there. It is important that the public does not perceive the judiciary as biased or impartial. Now, I think, like I said earlier, 50% of the fulfillment of this confidence will come from transparency. Transparency first from the way and manner judicial officers are appointed. Transparency in the way and manner judicial officers are promoted. Transparency in the way and manner judgments and decisions are reached.
All right.
And that means the judiciary itself must open itself up for criticism.
So in the wake of all this rot that we're speaking about and these corruption allegations, what role does the National Judiciary Council play in maintaining the integrity of the judiciary then?
Well, the NJC, it should be playing a very, very vital role in all of this. First, of course, because it is responsible for the discipline of erring judicial officers. This essentially will ensure that when erring judicial officers are punished and such decisions are made public, other judicial officers are likely to see that and, do the right things. Now, beyond that, the NJC also has a duty, and I'm talking about beyond corruption. The NJC also has a duty to monitor the personal lifestyle of judicial officers. And I think this is very important. So, for instance, it is common knowledge what the remuneration of judicial officers are. So, if a judicial officer is living above its means, it is the duty of the NJC to flag that up and probably ask the anti-corruption or law enforcement agencies to look into that. That's one. Secondly, the NJC is also responsible to a large extent, or plays a very large, important role in the appointment of judicial officers. It must therefore increase its scrutiny of prospective judicial officers or judicial officers who are to be promoted to the higher courts, maybe from high courts to federal high court to the court of appeal or thereabout. And beyond that scrutiny, they must also ensure that for those who are already judicial officers at lower courts, who are going to maybe the higher courts from high courts, the performances of those judicial officers are taken into cognizance in determining whether they merit such promotion. And when we say performances, we're not just talking about the number of judgments that they have dished out. It is important, of course, that they must be very, very hardworking. But beyond that, there must be some sort of scrutiny into the nature, type, and kind of judgments and decisions that those judges have reached. And where there is there's some sort of there's persistence of such judicial officers in dishing out judgments, orders, and rulings that do not, that cannot be supported either by law or common sense, then such judicial officers must be denied access to higher offices.
Okay, then
do you suggest is responsible for ensuring this happens.
So do you suggest any frameworks or reforms that can help mitigate corruption in the system?
Reforms and framework, I will tell you the truth of the matter. Like I always say, for most issues in Nigeria, the problem we have is not that of the absence of the framework. It is the lack of the will to give effect to that framework that is already existing. So there is, for instance, already we're talking about appointment of judicial officers. There are guidelines for the appointment of judicial officers, but is the NJC committed to those guidelines? Has it been following the spirit and the letter of the guidelines? The answer is no. So what they need to do is to ensure that they, in a display of commitment to transparency and to ensuring that public perception of the judicial system, of the judiciary, improves, they must start complying stricto sensu with the spirit and letters of the guidelines that they themselves put in place, but which they have refused to follow, or which they have refused to enforce when the state judicial councils fail to comply.
I want to say thank you very much for giving us your expert opinion on the matter. Of course, as usual, we'll always come to you for these kinds of matters. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you very much for having me this.
You're welcome. Now it's going to break, and when we get back, President Tinubu orders ministers to render account of stewardship. The details of this and more after the break. Stay with us. Now back to our previous story from before, as the State Executive Committee of the People's Democratic Party in Abia State has announced the suspension of the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the party, Adolph Wabara, for 1 month. Now, Wabara is alleged to have, in 2023, assured Governor Alex Oti that his second term is already booked. The state chairman of the party, Amma Abraham, who announced his suspension at the meeting of the State Executive Committee on Tuesday in Umuahia, says the former Senate president is yet to respond to questions by the party over an alleged comment for more than a year. So live to help us make sense of this, we are joined by Chairman PDP Abia State, Amma Abraham. Mr. Abraham, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
It's my pleasure to be with you. Good evening.
Good. So, sir, what were the key reasons that led to the suspension of Adolphus Wabara at the BOT chairman, as the BOT chairman of the PDP?
Well, I must confess that the action of the State Executive Committee of our party today was done in good faith. Senator, very distinguished Senator Adolphus Wabara is a member of the state executive of our party by virtue of the fact that he is, or he was at some time, a principal officer of the National Assembly. And our constitution provides that a former principal officer of the National Assembly is a member of the state executive of the party at the level of the state chapter. And our constitution also provides that as a member of the state executive, you enjoy the full privileges of that body and can also be disciplined by the state executive. Mindful of the fact that sometime in October 2023, the very distinguished senator and the chairman of the PDP Board of Trustees did announce to the world that the governor of Abia State, who is a product of the Labour Party, have done so well that he is fit to be re-elected for second time. That did not go well with the party at the state level. It is not the responsibility of a political party to market the candidates or persons who belong in another political party. And if you do that in the PDP or any other party, it is classified as anti-party. And there are consequences provided by various sections of our constitution which prohibits anti-party. And of course, there is no other way to deal with anybody who is guilty of anti-party other than to be sanctioned by the State Executive Committee of the party. And that was exactly what happened today.
He's been sanctioned thus. Fubara is a very high-profile principal of the party, and this is bound to affect the dynamics of the party, especially the unity of the party. So what's the party doing to mitigate the impact of his suspension then?
Now, well, the law is not made for the commoners. I think at the level of our party, everybody is the same before the law. So I don't think that we should operate a system whereby the so-called mighty will commit an offense and they will go scot-free. And then when the common people like myself or you are found guilty, then they will be held culpable. So what has happened today, he is a victim of his own circumstance. He's a victim of his own action. Justice have taken place. And for now, we believe that we have been able to tell the world that indiscipline is not, as a party, that we do not tolerate indiscipline. And we have also been able to tell the world that no matter how highly placed you are, that if you commit any crime against the party, that the party will deal with you irrespective of your position. And that is what we have been able to do. And party members across the 17 local governments have welcomed the developments, and we stand by our action, and we have no regret for our actions.
So do we take it that Fubara's suspension is part of a broader strategy to reform the PDP, or are there other instances or specific happenings that might have caused his suspension?
Well, you will agree with me that any society without discipline have a fundamental problem, and you stand to get nothing if you don't have discipline. So discipline is the key for every political party, for every organization, be it profit-making organization like what you have in corporate Nigeria, or non-profit organization, or the civil society, or the non-governmental organization, or the education institution, wherever you find yourself, discipline is key. And where you are, where people are allowed to do what they want to do, then there is a fundamental problem for that organization. We believe in procedure. We believe that people must conduct themselves properly. And today we have been able to send a very powerful message that Abia PDP does not tolerate any manner of indiscipline, no matter who is involved.
So Fubara, being a principal member of the party and a leader, how will the PDP now in Abia State ensure that this suspension does not cause a rift within the party?
It will not cause a rift, because rather what it will do, what the implication of the suspension is that people will conduct themselves properly. Because that suspension is also coming with restriction. A certain section of our party's constitution also automatically restricts anybody who is so sanctioned, as we have done in this case of the Senator Fubara. He is restricted from holding any official position. So having been suspended, he cannot continue to occupy the position of membership of the Board of Trustees, not to take of chairman of Board of Trustees. It's not possible, because if at that level, those who find themselves at that level cannot conduct themselves, then it becomes unfortunate. That body will find another person on acting capacity for now.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Ama Abraham, for joining us this evening to help clarify the situation. Thank you very much, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, too. Thank you.
Now, away from that, President Bola Tinubu has directed ministers to resume a public performance review from next week as part of a drive to promote transparency and keep Nigerians informed about government programs. Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris announced the directive during a press briefing in Abuja on Tuesday. He said the review would begin at the National Press Center, with ministers providing updates on their activities and performance. The minister added that only 25 out of over 40 ministers attended the first edition of the review last year, where they gave an account of their work and plans. He gave the assurance that this year's edition would be more comprehensive, with all ministers expected to participate in the coming months. And in the meantime, the lawmaker, I beg your pardon, African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina says he is ready to serve Nigeria and Africa in any capacity after his tenure at the bank expires in the second half of this year. Discerning observers are interpreting this to mean he may run for Aso Rock in 2027, which he declined to do in 2023. Now, expectations were high and widespread for him to contest for Nigeria's presidency in the last general elections, so much that he had to issue a statement clarifying he could not do so at the time because he enjoyed his job at the AFDB. And the AFDB rules did not permit him to go into politics. Now to security matters. The Defense Headquarters disclosed on Monday that 800 former Boko Haram fighters who surrendered to the military were undergoing de-radicalization for onward reintegration into society. The Chief and the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has issued a directive banning officers from carrying assault rifles while dressed in civilian clothing, mufti. This new order aims to ensure professionalism within the Nigerian police force and prevent the misuse of power. Egbetokun also emphasized the importance of upholding human rights, warning officers of severe consequences for any breaches. The IGP's directive highlights the need for police personnel to follow ethical guidelines and maintain operational integrity in all situations. And to discuss this, we're joined by security analyst and executive director, Elixir Trust Foundation, Emmanuel Ikule. Mr. Emmanuel Ikule, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Grand. So, how could this ban impact the operations or effectivity of the Nigerian policemen in Mufti during high-risk situations?
Based on the trainings that officers had during their time with the training colleges, already they know that it's not appropriate for them to engage, to dress, not to dress properly during while on duty. While on duty, you have to dress properly, and that helps generally. Anybody looking at you at that point knows that you are carrying out the work as expected. But when you are not on duty, indirectly, once you don't appear in your uniform, it means you are not on duty. And if you are not on duty, anything you do at that particular point is termed illegal. So I feel, and I'm seeing it, that it's just to reiterate what already they know. They are not supposed to appear in mufti while carrying out their assignment. A lot of these things were seen during the time we had SARS, carrying out, dressing in mufti, and a lot of them were also appearing very dirty, going about collecting loans, recovering loans for people, and doing all sorts of criminal activities and all that in the past. So I think this is a new trend of trying to see that the ills of the past are addressed so that the police officers currently that we are having learn to more like walk in deviation from the mistakes of the past, particularly that was done by SARS.
And what specific concerns arise when police officers are dressed in plain clothes?
First, it's not professional, as every endeavor, every organization has its proper way of doing things, have its guidelines and what should be done. And in this particular case, as officers, they have their uniform and they should always appear in their uniform, especially when they are on duty.
Mm-hmm.
Officers, yes, when they are not on duty, they can as well assist.
Yeah, but are there any security implications to them not being in uniform?
Not being in uniform, it means at that particular time, citizens seeing them appearing in guns can look at them as armed robbers, may not trust them to work with them. And how can you differentiate people carrying arms, whether they are police officers or not, especially when they are in mufti? You won't be able to know. A lot of times, people have appeared in mufti on checkpoints and have robbed people. And most times you look at press statements from law enforcement officers coming out to discredit that those persons were not them. They were not at those checkpoints and all that. But this have affected a lot of persons And for those that keep traveling in the night, they will still see a lot of checkpoints, and some of these checkpoints are being mounted by criminals, and they don't appear. They usually appear in mufti and with ammunitions. So if our law enforcement officers or personnel are also doing trading the same paths, then there is no difference. A professional group, a professional security enforcement agencies should behave in a professional manner. And anybody going against this should also be made to bear the brunt of the law.
Well, Emmanuel, I want to say thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you indeed.
Thank you so much for having me.
Moving on now, a Yoruba youth group has condemned a new bill proposed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, mandating that only individuals with prior experience within the National Assembly chambers be eligible for appointment as clerk to the National Assembly. The concerned Yoruba youth group at a press conference on Tuesday in Lagos described the proposed bill as flawed.
Natural justice dictates that individuals should have opportunity to advance in their career. Indeed, we believe that if this bill is passed into law, it will only create unnecessary division within the National Assembly workforce.
Honestly and sincerely, we will appreciate. We will not keep quiet until the right thing is done. That look, you don't define a man's progression in life by just a whiff of the hand. The civil service is supposed to be the engine room of administration in every structure within governance in any society.
Coming up, Sudan's largest civilian coalition splits over government formation. This and more after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Sudan's largest civilian political coalition, Takudum, has split into two factions, citing deep disagreement over forming a government in areas controlled by paramilitaries at war with the army. In a statement on Monday, the bloc of political parties and professional unions said the division was triggered by two opposing stances on the government formation issue. It added that henceforth each faction would operate under a new name with a separate political and organizational structure, pursuing its own vision for ending the war, achieving lasting peace, and establishing democratic civilian rule. Meanwhile, the Sudanese army, which has been locked in conflict with the Rapid Support Forces since April 2023, has accused Takudum's leader, former Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, of aligning with the RSF paramilitaries. In a recent interview with Fox News, U.S. President Donald Trump suggested that Ukraine may potentially become part of Russia in the future. When discussing the ongoing conflict between Moscow and Kiev, Trump stated that Ukraine may make a deal with Russia or it may not. He added that Ukraine may become Russian someday, or it may not. This comment has sparked concerns about the potential implications for Ukraine's sovereignty and the ongoing conflict.
Billions of dollars, and they may make a deal, they may not make a deal, they may be Russian someday or they may not be Russian someday, but we're going to have all this money in there, and I say I want it back. And I told them that I want the equivalent, like $500 billion worth of rare earth, and they've essentially agreed to do that. So at least we don't feel stupid. Otherwise we're stupid. I said to them, we have to get something. We can't continue to pay this money.
School staff in Paris have gone on strike and taken to the streets to protest the planned closure of 198 classes for the upcoming school year. The move is part of a broader restructuring effort that also eliminates a special exemption system for administrative relief for principals. According to union officials, 60% of teachers are participating in the strike, resulting in the closure of 170 schools. The protesters are calling on authorities to reconsider the closures, citing concerns about the impact on students and the already strained education system.
Ne partez pas une fois que vous avez été reçus. parce qu'on a des projets. Donc aujourd'hui, ce qu'on veut, c'est des réponses. On n'acceptera pas ces 110 suppressions de postes.
Et d'ouverture de classe. À Paris, aujourd'hui, on a 110 suppressions de postes pour la rentrée prochaine. Ça s'ajoute aux près de 300 postes qui ont déjà été supprimés ces 2 dernières années. Donc Paris paye vraiment un lourd tribut sur l'austérité budgétaire et la suppression des postes d'enseignants. Ça se traduit cette année par 198 fermetures de classes, ce qui aboutirait en septembre à 500 suppressions de classes en quelques 3 ans. Donc c'est vraiment énorme.
Ça va très bien pour eux dans l'Académie de Paris. Vous savez qu'on va arriver à des chiffres de 50% de scolarisation des élèves en école privée. Donc nous, c'est un crève-cœur, c'est-à-dire qu'on se retrouve à défendre ce qui nous semble l'école, voilà, le premier choix pour les parents d'élèves, qui est l'école publique, avec tout ce que ça entend en termes d'intégration, de projets politiques, de projets pour la République, et de le voir année après année. On parle à peu près, j'ai pas les chiffres exacts, mais on est à pas loin de 500 classes fermées depuis les 3 dernières années, et ça devient insupportable.
Now we're going on a short break, and when we get back, sports and business. Stay tuned. Business now. The Nigerian Railway Corporation, in partnership with APM Terminals, has expanded cargo movement from the Apapa port in Lagos to NRC's freight yard in Monia, Ibadan, Oyo State. At the flag-off ceremony of the standard gauge rail on Monday in Apapa, Lagos, the new managing director of the NRC, Dr. Kayode Ekwefa, promised that no stone will be left unturned as the rail system is vital under President Bola Tinubu's government. He said this collaboration aims to enhance logistics, efficiency, increase rail transport capacity, offer a more sustainable, cost-effective solution for cargo movement, and decongest the Apapa port. Recall that Ekwefa and the CEO of APM Terminals Nigeria, Frederick Klinke, last Thursday agreed on the modalities for the freight operations. Sports now. Coco Gauff suffered an unexpected early exit from the Qatar Open, crashing in straight sets to Marta Kostyuk on Tuesday. Gauff, competing for the first time since her Australian Open quarterfinal loss to Paula Badosa, struggled with consistency, hitting 7 double faults in a shaky performance. The Ukrainian secured a 6-7-5 victory, setting up a third-round clash against either Magdalinette or Magdalena Frech. Meanwhile, Elena Rybakina breezed into the last 16 with a 6-6-4 victory over Peyton Stearns, despite a brief late start. The Wimbledon champion squandered 3 match points before finally closing the match on her 5th attempt. And former Spanish Football Federation President Luis Rubiales testified Tuesday in his trial over the controversial kiss on Jenny Hermoso during Spain's 2023 Women's World Cup celebrations. The case, which has drawn global attention, has made Hermoso a symbol in the fight against sexism in sports. Prosecutors are seeking a 2.5-year prison sentence, accusing Rubiales of sexual assault and coercion. Hermoso stated she felt disrespected by the non-consensual act, while witnesses described her distress and pressure to downplay the incident. Rubiales, however, insisted Hermoso consented.
Cabeza con las manos.
Cuando terminamos de darnos el abrazo, me quedaron encima de los hombros y al ir a besarnos, después de que me diera permiso, o durante esa frase, le agarré la cabeza con las manos.
¿Fue simultáneo el beso y agarrarle la cabeza?
Fue simultáneo la pregunta, la respuesta y posteriormente vino el beso.
¿Para qué le agarra la cabeza?
Es como dar un abrazo, es que en ese momento es algo totalmente espontáneo, como ella también declaró inmediatamente después del partido.
¿Estás seguro de que le dio su aprobación, su consentimiento?
Totalmente seguro.
And that's all this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories which we brought your way. The People's Democratic Party in Abia State has suspended BOT chairman Adolphus Fubara over alleged anti-party activities. And Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kekere Ekun, has decried persistent corruption allegations, delays in justice delivery. And finally, we also told you that Sudan's largest civilian coalition has split over government formation. Now, do remember that you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Able TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.